what's the use of two strong legs if you only run away? And what use is the finest voice when you've nothing good to say? What good is strength and muscle if you only push and shove? And what's the use of two good ears when you can't hear those you love? It's not just what you're born with, it's what you choose to bear. And it's not how big your share is, but how much you can share. And it's not the fights you dreamed of, but those you really fought. It's not what you've been given, it's what you do with what you've got. Yeah, it's not just what you're born with, it's what you choose to bear. And it's not how big your share is, but how much you can share. And it's not the fights you dreamed of, but those you really fought. It's not what you've been given, it's what you do with what you've got.
Welcome back to Seeds of Revolution. Today we have a great guest, Art Farquharson. Art, thanks for coming by.
Glad to be here, Joel.
Art is a singer, he's a guitar player, he's a labor activist, and I don't know, troublemaker? How does that sound?
That's a good one. I like that one. Agitator, I think, is probably one of the better ways of describing what I do. I agitate. I try to, as they say, afflict the comfortable and comfort the afflicted.
I love it. How did you get started in a career or an avocation of agitation? Is it a family? Did you grow up in an activist family?
No, I did not. I did not. My mother was a war bride from Holland. My father was a soldier in the Canadian Army. They came back to Canada. They raised 6 children here, and I happened to be one of them. Sympathetic to the labor movement, always conscious of working class needs, and very oriented towards getting a job and doing the right thing and being independent, but not particularly labor activist oriented.
What started your interest in the labor movement and left-wing progressive politics?
My first picket line was in 1973 when I was cleaning airplanes at CP Air at Toronto Airport. And they went on strike, all the mechanics and maintenance people. So we were on strike for 3 months, and that was my first picket line. I'm barely 21 years old, and so we're walking a picket line. So I'm getting really very immersed almost immediately into working class consciousness with that.
Why did you decide to side with the workers and not the scabs? Because there's many people who might have made the other choice, especially if they didn't grow up in a particular pro-labor or political household.
That would have been a possibility. It was never offered to me, and I considered the possibility. At that point, I had to make a choice. But fortunately, the lower management at CP Air thought, well, no, we're not going to ask people to cross a picket line. I mean, they did have scabs on the job, but and then it became obvious to me that it was in our interest, in my personal interest, but in the interest of everybody else that we walked the line, and so I walked the line, and that became, and then one of the important things about picket lines and being on strike is you really get to know your fellow workers. You're now walking the line with them, having nothing to do but talk about the workplace and talk about the bosses and why you're on this picket line. And so that gave me the real sense of, okay, which side are you on? And it gave me a perspective of, okay, these are bosses, and they need to be jogged into doing the right thing and paying proper wages and respecting the working class, which they didn't at the time. And it was a successful strike ultimately, and the workers all went back. But it was like I said, my parents were very supportive of it, and I only learned later that my grandfather, my father's father, he was a railroader in Prince Edward Island, and he was the shop steward. I didn't know this until some years later, that my granddad was an activist in the union amongst the railway workers in Prince Edward Island.
How many picket lines have you walked in your long and illustrious career?
It's I wouldn't say countless, but certainly 1, 2, 3 of workplaces that I have been,
or just any
picket line.
Picket line.
Probably 50 or more.
Why Why is it important to walk picket lines and support striking workers, especially if you are of a much younger generation? Maybe you're 18, 19 years old. You don't have a lot of experience or any with the labor movement. You're growing up in a society, Canada, the United States, where it's been lately hostile to the working class, very obsequious to the oligarchy and to capitalism. So, for some of our listeners who are younger, why is the life you've led and the causes you've supported, why is it important?
Well, the working class and the employing class have nothing in common. And that's the opening line of the preamble to the Constitution of the Industrial Workers of the World,
Which we're going to talk more about.
Of which I am a member and a delegate, so I can sign people up and I can collect dues and I can talk about unions for until the cows come home and the importance of the working class. It's important for people to recognize which side of the line they're on. Are you with the employing class or with the working class? The working class and the struggles of the working class have been going on for centuries, ever since certainly since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. But before that, we've got the diggers in St. George's Hill in 1600s, and all sorts of organization of the working people, farmers, farmers, peasants, and anybody working in the. And so when you get into the working place and you get into a job, and most people have a job, 95% of the working people in this country have a job. They go to work and they're collecting a paycheck. So it doesn't matter whether you're a college professor or a ditch digger. You're a member of the working class. You're collecting. So you have to say to yourself, if you're struggling to make the rent, if you're struggling to make the payments for the car, if you're struggling to be able to get to work, and reasonably well, all those different things that you're struggling at, you have to ask yourself, why are you struggling, and what's the solution? And the solution is organizing and finding common cause with the person standing beside you on the picket line, standing beside you in the workplace. If you've never been on strike, you're working with people. Those people have the same struggles that you have. And the solution to those struggles is for you to find ways of organizing and agitating and sometimes going on strike, but by whatever means necessary to find a way of getting those solutions met, or getting those needs met through organizing, by going to the boss as a group and say, we want this, we need that. We know you can afford it. You're driving a Cadillac, and I'm taking public transit or riding a bike because I can't afford a car. There's a problem here, and you are the beneficiary of my labor, and that's why even at the earliest stage of your working career, working at McDonald's, it's the same thing as the guy working on the line at Ford.
Why have you decided that the IWW is the outlet for you to express your class solidarity and your activism? And in your answer, if you could also tell our listeners who might not know, what the IWW even is.
The Industrial Workers of the World, the IWW, is an industrial union that's been around since 1905. And it has an illustrious history, and one of the things that draws me to the IWW is their sense of music but also at its core, their concept of organizing is not the formal kind of organizing that we do in the modern times, the kind of union organization we have. Their attitude is direct action. Okay, we're not waiting around for a collective agreement to be signed. We're not gonna go to the government to ask permission to organize. We're gonna organize the workers. So we will establish ourselves as an organization of 2, 3, 4 workers, and the IWW celebrates that. And is willing to back that and to train people to do that kind of thing. And so they've done some marvelous strikes in the past. The most important being the Lawrence, Massachusetts mill strike. Went on for a couple of years, and those workers, they held out for a couple of years, and they organized soup kitchens, they organized childcare, they managed, and they won in Lawrence, Massachusetts, and so if you just look at the history. If you look at history, I mean, there's lots of good unions around. I mean, I've been, and a union's only as good as the members that are in it, and you can point to corruption at various levels of the union, of all major unions, but on the shop floor, it's the shop stewards and the health and safety committee people that are really what hold it all together. So the IWW, it doesn't matter whether you're actually employed or not. It's
one big union.
It's one big union, and our belief is we organize industrially, and so the way we can win is we organize all workers in the restaurant industry, all workers in the health industry, so we have all these different sectors, agricultural workers and mine workers and forestry workers. So our goal is to organize all those workers so that when one group of workers is off on strike or is facing a struggle, all the work stops in the entire industry, and nobody gets an advantage over it. So it's a different model in that it doesn't require a government stamp of approval.
I see over your shoulder that we at Camus have for sale a copy of the IWW songbook, which I know has an important place in your heart and your history. If you could maybe tell us a little bit about that songbook, and just fair warning, Art, when you finish your answer, I might ask you to play a song from that songbook or from your repertoire.
This is the one thing that I only learned about the IWW back in 1988 when I encountered a guy called Bruce Brackney, and whose moniker is Haywire Brack, and he was driving cab as I was driving cab, and he introduced me to Joe Hill. And Joe Hill was one of the earlier authors of many of the great songs of the IWW songbook. And so we have this little book, and it's hard to tell, but it's meant to be a songbook that you could have in your pocket, and you can go to meetings, and you can open the songbook, and you can sing along to the songs, because they are singable. And there's a wonderful old adage, I don't know where it came from, but beware the movement that sings, for it is invincible.
That's a great saying.
And so the IWW has been singing and publishing new editions of the IWW songbooks ever since 1908. And so I'm actually on a committee right now of the IWW to put out a new edition, hopefully sometime later this year. So it's the concept of it is that it's another way of the workers to feel connected to each other. If we're standing in a big room and everybody's got their copy of the IWW songbook in front of them, and they've got let's all sing The Preacher and the Slave, or let's all sing Power in the Union, or Union Maid, or something like that. That then there's a strength to that. There's an element of buoying up your sagging spirits with
and it's
song.
Physical solidarity.
Yeah,
the actual act of solidarity.
Yeah, and so so you can be in a room with auto workers or restaurant workers or all these different, all having a meeting, but you all have this. You all have your songbook in your hand, and you're all able to. Somebody will strike up a guitar, or not. It's not necessary.
What's the difference between playing an IWW song and giving a speech? As an artist, because you're an activist, but you're also an artist, you're a musician, and I'm hoping maybe you can speak to the power of music as opposed to the power of, I don't want to say simple, but the power of prose, the power of speech making.
This is a ongoing challenge for us musicians. I mean, it's you. the latest trend always seems to be, or over the last 25 or 30 years, is the music is a sort of a fringe. It's not central to the program. It's a little added extra. But and I do this. I mean, I go to an event, and even if they've asked me to play a song, they've asked me to do something. Oftentimes you'll see the leaders of the event, like the union executive or something like that. Art starts up with his guitar. He's got the room singing, and those guys, the leaders, are over there in the corner chatting about something,
Taking a break,
but not paying attention to the music, not participating in the music, not standing on the stage with Art singing the song and helping lead the song. It's like, okay, get it over with. Get it out of your system, Art, and let's carry on with the real meat of what we're doing. There's no, I mean, there are great speakers, and there are people who have important things to say, but the simple messages of the music, and also one of the it's the early strengths of the IWW is that they organized all workers. There was no barriers. There was immigrants could sing.
People who are illiterate.
People who were illiterate could be part of it. They came in and lots of people from the Orient who spoke no English, but they could hear the music, and they can embrace the music. And that speaks to the people, and that brings the people into the fold. And yeah, they're going to hear the words, but they may not understand a lot of the words. But they can understand the music. The music is visceral. It comes into your heart. It comes into your soul, and it gives you strength. And so it's necessary as part of the whole program of getting the message across and it reaches people that don't get reached.
I'd love for you to pick one of those songs so our audience could hear it.
This is a song by Joe Hill, and Joe Hill was a Swedish immigrant in the United States, and he really, really captured the idiom of the American people and the English language to the point where he wrote all these brilliant songs, and a lot of them were songs that were the tunes were familiar, old hymns and things like that. And he would take those songs and take those old tunes and make new important things for them, more important lyrics for them that made sense to people. Would you have freedom from wage slavery? Then come join the grand industrial band. Would you from hunger and misery be free? Then come do your share, lend a hand. There is power in a band of working folks when they stand hand in hand. That's the power that must rule in every land. One industrial union grand. Would you have mansions of gold in the sky and live in a shack way in the back? Would you have wings up in heaven to fly and starve here with rags on your back? There is power in a band of working folks when they stand hand in hand. That's the power that must rule in every land. One industrial union grand. If you've had enough of the blood of the Lamb, then come join the grand industrial band. Then we are share of this earth. If for a change you'd have eggs and ham, then come do your share, lend a hand. There is power in a band of working folks when they stand hand in hand. That's the power that must rule in every land. One industrial union grand.
Well, if you like sluggers to beat on your head, then don't organize. All unions despise. If you'd have nothing before you are dead, shake hands with your boss and look wise. There is power in a band of working folks when they stand hand in hand. That's the power that must rule in every land. One industrial union grand. So come all ye workers from every land, come join in the grand industrial band. Then we our share of this earth shall demand. So come, do your share, lend a hand. There is power in a band of working folks when they stand hand in hand. That's the power that must rule in every land. One industrial union grand.
Excellent. Very good. Thanks, Art. That was beautiful.
It's it's rough. I mean, I don't profess to be a really great guitarist.
I think you're pretty great, my friend.
Well, but there's a lot of really, really good guitarists out there. But I know a few chords, and I can keep it in tune, and I know the words.
What's your I don't know, fondest memory, but of all the times you've sung for unions or activists, all the times you've maybe sung in protests, what's a moment that really stands out to you as one that meant a whole lot?
Here's one here. Okay, so 1995. We're talking now almost 30 years
30
ago.
years ago, yeah.
Okay, 1995. We're on strike at Horizon Air in Victoria and Vancouver to try to get our second collective agreement.
And this is when you were working for Horizon?
Yes, I'm working for Horizon Air. I'm on the bargaining committee, and it's the fall of 1995. We're on a 3-month strike. Okay, that's how long the bosses held out, and it was and ultimately wasn't a big victory for the working class. However, the union is still there to this day, even though I lost my job as a result. However, okay, we decided we're going to take the picket lines to Seattle, the headquarters of the company. So a bunch of us piled onto the Victoria Clipper and made our way down to Seattle. And Saturday night we've done picketing all day Friday and all day Saturday. And then Saturday night there's a bunch of young people, young socialists in Seattle who have organized a house party for us, right? And there we are. And so I bring out the guitar and I'm singing. I think I'm singing Union Maid. Right, the great Woody Guthrie song.
Sure.
And I'm singing this song, and I'm inspired to sing the song, and people are singing the chorus. But all these young people, they knew the words to the verses as well. These young people had learned this stuff for wherever they were, and they didn't have their copies of the Little Red Songbook with them.
And 95, that was before the internet.
That was before the internet. So these young people, and that's where one of the most powerful experiences for me was, and this is it's flashing forward to 2025. This is my new mission: is to inspire younger people to take up this task that I have set for myself. This role of picking up the guitar and being the songs at the head of the picket line, or to just give comfort and to the people who are facing struggle.
I think that's such a wonderful mission or aspiration because, having been to, I don't know how many protests and how many picket lines, it's serious business, as it should be.
Yeah.
As the struggle for freedom and equality and liberation should be. But it can be kind of dark sometimes.
It can.
And having music to lighten the load and lighten the mood and transport us to a happier, a more melodic place. I think that's an incredible goal.
And I said I've embraced this to the point where I learn songs all the time. And again, I'm not a songwriter. I consider myself a presenter of songs, an interpreter of other people's songs, and because other people do it so well, so brilliantly. I mean, you said someone once said for every composer there should be 200 interpreters, and
I like that.
I'm totally happy being one of those interpreters.
Have you paid, a price in your personal life or in your professional life for your dedication to the working class and dedication to the struggle for freedom and equality?
Yeah, I have. It's a price worth paying, but I've lost jobs. I've lost, I lost my job in '95 because of my union activity. I lost my job at BC Ferries in 2006 because of my union activity.
Because you were trying to organize?
Because I was raising the spirits of the working class in a fairly oppressive place. I worked in the call center at BC Ferries, and it was a it seems like a comfortable job. You're indoors, you're on the phone and things.
Not getting seasick.
Not getting seasick, not having to drag your ass all the way out to Schwartz Bay every day. But nonetheless, it was a struggle for a lot of those workers, and so I felt that I was there to help to raise the spirits of people. So part of the critique of my employers, of my activities, was when they, in the early days, in the early years of the 2000s, the internet was coming on strong, and they gave us access to the internet, and they said, no, you can't touch the internet. There's a computer, but you can't touch the internet. I'm a kind of a internet junkie, I must admit. And I went on, but I went on and got lyrics to songs to send across the room to somebody who was having a trouble with their personal life, and I would send them the lyrics to a particular song. I can't remember what it was now, but they brought that as evidence against me, because I was doing that to try to raise the spirits of my coworkers.
Is that why they fired you?
It was one of the reasons they fired me. They had a book about 2 inches thick of all the evidence they had against me, and in the end, I was a victim to not only the oppression of and the lack of sense of humor of the CEO of BC Ferries, but also the need for arbitrators. You as a lawyer will understand the concept of labor arbitration, and the arbitrator's word is final. But the arbitrator is a business person. They have to have some of their about 50% go to the union, 50% go to the bosses. And I ended up, I think, in the figuring, okay, we'll uphold this termination because Farquharson's probably got another job somewhere anyway, so we'll give them this. But she did say, and she had, and I thought it was the most important quote of the entire 39-page decision, was management recognizes that Art was a good worker, but he resists.
It's quite the compliment.
I thought I wear that as a badge of honor.
As you well should, my friend.
And I felt I was a good worker. I did my time. I answered the questions. I was good with the customers. I did all the right things as far as the business was concerned.
But you resist.
But I resisted, and so that was what sort of caught me. But so yeah, I paid that price. I lost that job. Anyway, that was just, it was the price of my poor wife, who had to endure all this stuff. I mean, she's supportive of me and things like that. But she did say to me, if you get fired for one more job because of your union activity, I'm leaving you.
It comes at a cost.
There's a cost. There's a price.
Before I turned on the microphones, we were talking about long-winded speeches, and you were mentioning having sat through one by a certain Fidel Castro. I was wondering if you could tell us that story.
Well, again, I mean, what I learned, what I gained from the strike of 1995, what I gained was that we didn't have enough support from the overall labor community. And so I felt, well, I've got to put in to get back, right? So I started looking around for organizations that might need my help or need some support from me. So I discovered the Friends of Cuba. It's a group that's still active to this day. And because we were actively breaking the American blockade, we were bringing goods to Cuba and organizing, and we were all these different things. I ended up, as a result, being able to go to a solidarity conference in Havana in 2000. And it was brilliant. It was a wonderful opportunity for me to sort of see what was going on the ground in Cuba for the working class. And it inspires me to this day what Fidel had done. And here we are in the Karl Marx Theater, 4,500 people in this room. And for some reason, all week long, we had been fairly lax security until the night, that particular day. And surprise of all surprises, Fidel stepped out on the stage, and we're all, oh, wow. And Fidel was brilliant. He was.
Do you speak Spanish? Or
no, I don't. There was translation. There was translation. Yeah, I don't speak Spanish. I wish I did, but I don't. But it was brilliant. This guy was like, I sat in spellbound for 3 hours listening to this guy talk with no notes at all. He could tell you what it cost to rent an apartment in Brooklyn. He could tell you what it costs to buy a baseball ticket to see the New York Yankees. And he could say that all that costs you, that stuff in Cuba is pennies. So you can say that, the workers only make so much money per month in Cuba, but they get free health care. They get cheap housing. They got all their dental work is covered. All their kids' education is covered right through university. All these different things that everybody gets. Cost you 20 cents to go to a baseball game in Havana, not $200. But he knew this stuff. All this stuff is in his head. And he's just, like I said, it was inspiring. It's inspiring to listen to him and his capacity to hold people spellbound. And in fact, to these two teenagers in front of me, and sat through the whole thing.
What are your personal politics, if you don't mind my asking? As you know, Camus, we are not socialists, we are anarchists, we're anti-capitalists, but not big fans of statist institutions like Castro's Cuba. And I was curious what your feelings about anarchism are and what political line you followed, if you followed one throughout your life.
Well, I have a hot and cold relationship with electoral politics. I mean, yes, I pay attention to it. Yes, I know that it's the national government that has the purse strings, and they're the ones that tax us, and they're the ones that make decisions on my behalf. So I do vote. But I also have a healthy respect for institutions that are outside of the realm of normal, and anarchism is a valid concept, and I think that's at the core of the IWW. We're not part of we don't embrace the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party or the NDP or anything
or the Socialist or Communist
or
Party.
the Socialist or Communist. I mean, basically, there's a lot of so my principal beliefs are it's up to the working class. I was thinking about this morning, and Utah Phillips, one of the great thinkers and speakers of the IWW, he basically said that, and a lot of it is that we need to organize the working class, organize the institutions, the worker co-ops and the housing co-ops to the point where when this whole big facade collapses, which it will, the capitalist system ultimately will collapse. It may not be in yours in my day, Joel, but it will collapse because it's just so preponderantly huge and unwieldy. It's got to come down, crashing down. So ultimately, what's going to be left amongst the ashes will be, organized workers. And so, I mean, and that's the core of anarchism, in my view, is essentially people organizing to meet their own needs.
What do you think is one of the biggest challenges of organizing today? Because in an era where you have such tremendous wealth disparity, I mean, you have the richest man in the world giving 2 Nazi salutes in homage to, the most powerful man in the world And yet it still feels like working class organization and consciousness lags behind where we would like it to be. What do you see as those challenges?
Well, the challenges are I think one of the principal challenges is getting people out onto the streets. Yeah, sure, I spend time on Facebook. Yeah, but the revolution is not going to be won on Facebook.
Yeah.
It's
Not
not
going to be
it-
won by likes.
and it's not going to be won by the number of likes that you send. That's you got to do more than that. You got to get out to the streets. You got to be out there, and it's like, and it's because you can't just sit, go to the polls once every 4 years, put your X there or there or there, and say it's all over with. But I am inspired by what I do find. I mean, when I hear that Ford workers are striking, when I hear that Starbucks workers are organizing, when I hear that when I hear that we're actually, some friends of mine and I were supporting the building of a school in Chile, an indigenous school in the Mapuche region of Chile. And those are people who are organizing the building of a school to maintain their culture and maintain their language. And I'm also connected to some friends who worked for a cultural school in Alert Bay up north of here. And they're, interestingly enough, this couple that I know, they're not members of the Numgees band, but they got hired to work in the school. And the class is democratic. It's a grade 4 and 5 class, and the kids decide what they want to learn. They said they're going to have votes every single day. What do you want to learn today? And because apparently the First Nations education system has a Supreme Court ruling to allow them to teach whatever they want. They don't have to form any particular curriculum. And so my friends Jamu and Eva, they're teaching all these kids. They're learning stuff. They're learning the mathematics. They're learning. But the kids, like this year, apparently they wanted to learn about cooking. And so they said, okay, let's fashion a lesson plan around cooking, and they can learn about mathematics and fractions,
science, physics,
all the physics,
chemistry,
and they can learn about farming, and they can learn about where the grain comes from, and where and all that stuff that because they can learn geography, they can learn history, they can learn all this different things. You have to be creative and bring in it. But the kids, they're what kids that were otherwise, a lot of these kids come from damaged households, lots of alcoholism and drug addiction in that small community. But these kids that were isolated, they were sort of closed in on themselves and are now engaged. They are and that's what I think is going to be the saving grace of the working class is that those pockets of resistance are gonna flourish. And I think the one thing that Donald Trump has done for the working class is he made it really clear who's in charge. The billionaires are in charge. They've been in charge for a long time. I mean, let's not. And so he's exposed it.
Do you think that's really going to make a big difference?
I can only hope.
Let me rephrase that. Do you think it's going to, at the end of the day, do you think that is going to call into question these contradictions to the point where it actually achieves the change we all want to see?
Well, one can never know. I remain hopeful. I mean, every union activist remains hopeful. We wouldn't do the work unless we thought there was hope.
What do you think is the biggest challenge to union organization today?
Mass media is the biggest challenge. The mass media that sort of says, oh yeah, they're just greedy workers, right? And this most recent postal strike is a classic example of that. It's all they want is more money. They're just being greedy. They don't deserve the work that they get. So the media and the government say, oh yeah, the postal workers have all this and you don't have anything. Well, you as the person who doesn't have anything, why are you identifying with the bosses who are saying that those workers who have gotten at least something better than minimum wage are the problem? The problem is that you at the bottom are not getting anything. You deserve at least what they have. And so let's organize to get you, the bottom people, into the ranks of the organized working class. Part of the challenge is the business orientation of the major unions. And you go to the major unions and you say to them, well, we've got 10 workers in this workplace. We want to organize. We want to get a collective agreement. We want to organize. Sorry,
10's not worth our time.
You're too small. You're not worth our time. We just, even we're talking about, and this is like even Unifor. I mean, I was an active member of Unifor for years, and I hear that, I hear them say to a small group of workers, I'm sorry, it's not worth our while. This is the biggest private sector union in Canada, and they can't afford, to organize 10 workers or 20 workers. Sorry, if it's not more than 30 people, it's not worth our while.
What do you think the real reason is? Because of course they could afford to organize 10 workers if they wanted to.
Yeah, it's structural laziness, I guess, more than anything else. I mean, they've got plenty of money coming in. They've got lots of workers in Ford and GM and all these major employers all over the country. 500 workers, 1,000 workers, and things like that. So this is just pocket change to them. It's not worth it. Go find somebody else. Oh, okay. Well, and then there's the IWW comes along and said, we'll organize you. Only 2 of you? Fine, we'll organize you. We'll talk. We'll give you the tools. We'll bring you into our organizing training class. You can figure out how to organize your fellow workers, and we'll get some improvements. We may not get you the big fat collective agreement with all the perks that they have at General Motors, but we'll get you something better.
What do you say to young people who look around and see Trump's election and Elon fascism and Polyev maybe being the next prime minister, and who might be feeling, disillusioned by the moment, especially if they're people of color or LGBTQ plus or neurodivergent or differently abled? I mean, what do we offer to those people as hope in this time that can feel kind of dark?
I guess you have to look back a little bit, and I think that's our problem is that you need to sort of look back at the history of the working class, and we've faced a lot of challenges. We face a lot of oppression, in the Palmer raids of the 20s and the McCarthy years of the 50s and the Winnipeg General Strike and all these different things that we've faced. But the working class has risen above a lot of these things in the past. Just a little bit of history. Just read a few things. Read Howard Zinn's the famous book about the what's the title again? It's
People's History.
People's History of the United States. It's a brilliant piece. I mean, it talks about the slave revolts, and it talks about the working class struggles and how people were facing guns and bayonets and things like that. So those are the inspirations, and yeah, these are dark times. These are dark times, but better days can be ahead. It's just a matter of just look to your fellow workers and say, yeah, we can do better, and it's all we got to do is talk to each other.
On that note, Art, I'm wondering if you could take us out with an inspiring song.
Yeah. What would be the best song to sing in that circumstance? Pause for a second.
Sure.
I won't sing the whole song. I won't sing all of Solidarity Forever, but I'll sing part of it. But when I go to a rally, or I do a picket line or whatever, and somebody asks me to sing this Solidarity Forever, they get the whole thing. and I sang the original lyrics that were sung by or written by Ralph Chaplin in 1916, and they're still appropriate to this day. I don't change them at all because they're still the same.
When the union's inspiration through the workers' blood shall run, there can be no power greater anywhere beneath the sun. But what force on earth is weaker than the feeble strength of one? But the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever. Solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. They have taken untold billions that they never toiled to earn, yet without our brain and muscle, not a single wheel would turn. We can break their haughty power, gain our freedom when we learn that the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. In our hands is placed a power greater than their hoarded gold, greater than the might of armies, magnified 1,000-fold. We can bring to birth a new world from the ashes of the old, for the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong. Solidarity forever, solidarity forever, solidarity forever, for the union makes us strong.
Wonderful. Well, Art, thank you so much for sharing your time and your wisdom and your music with us. I really appreciate it.
It's a pleasure to be with you, Joel. Pleasure to be here today.
If Jesus Christ came back today like you threatened he will, which poor group of people do you think that he would kill? And who would Jesus choose to starve if you gave him the chance? And if there was a genocide, would he take a neutral stance? Who would Jesus bomb? Tell me, who would Jesus bomb? Would it be kids in Palestine, or how about Vietnam? Would Jesus bomb the atheists, the Muslims, or the Jews? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? Would he say it's complicated and there's sinners on both sides? Or would he say that some people, they just deserve to die? If Jesus Christ rose from the dead and on a sidewalk slept, would you extend your hand to him or just watch where you stepped? Who would Jesus bomb? Tell me, who would Jesus bomb? Would it be kids in Palestine, or how about Vietnam? Would Jesus bomb the atheists, the Muslims, or the Jews? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? Would Jesus hate the gay folk, the queer folk, or the trans? Would he suggest they end their lives according to God's plans? Would Jesus tell a homeless man to get a fucking job, or turn his back on the poor? Would Jesus be a snob? Who would Jesus bomb? Tell me, who would Jesus bomb? Would it be kids in Palestine, or how about Vietnam? Would Jesus bomb the atheists, the Muslims, or the Jews? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? build a border wall? Would Jesus drive a tank? Would Jesus be a landlord? Would Jesus run a bank? Would Jesus Christ feel safe in his skin if he came to your town? And would you still believe in him if you found out he was brown? Who would Jesus bomb? Tell me, who would Jesus bomb? Would it be kids in Palestine, or how about Vietnam? Would Jesus bomb the atheists, the Muslims, or the Jews? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? Yeah, who would Jesus bomb? Tell me, who would Jesus bomb? Would it be kids in Palestine, or how about Vietnam? Would Jesus bomb the atheists, the Muslims, or the Jews? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? I want you to ask yourself, well, what would Jesus do? I want you to ask yourself, well,